Welcome everyone. I'm really excited that everybody's here tonight. My name is Erin and I'm a speech pathologist, a mum of two and the founder of Each Speech Pair Plum, which is actually a little test for everyone. If you can't say my business name, then you definitely need to come and see me. But all jokes aside, I've been working with little people and their beautiful families since 2016. And I'm really excited to share what speech pathology can do to support little people in their development. So, alongside supporting children, one of my biggest passions is working with parents. So helping parents feel confident, connected and empowered to support their children's development in everyday moments. So that's why when the Little Wonders team reached out and asked me to be part of their webinar series, I jumped at the opportunity. So whether you're here because you're curious, a bit concerned, or you just want to understand more about what speech pathology can do and what it might, be able to offer your child, this is definitely the right place to be tonight. If you've got any questions, we might save them till the end. There's no question too small or too silly, and there is absolutely no concern that is too early as well. So I'm looking forward to having a chat at the end once we've got through the presentation. So if you haven't already, get a tea, get a wine. You're going to have to listen to me talk for about 45 minutes, so you're going to need it. But let's jump in. So here's a quick little look at what I'm going to cover today. We're going to talk about what speech pathologists actually do. It's a funny name. Was speech therapy, was speech language pathologist, was speech pathologist. It's all the same thing, and I'm going to break down what we actually do, the areas that we support, and how we help children from birth all the way through to teen years. I know most of us have probably more of a lens on the early years, but I did want to cover up to teens just so that you can really understand the scope of what we do. We're also going to explore when it might be time to seek support, what therapy actually looks like when you come to see us, and the different pathways that are available to access speech pathology. So that includes things like Medicare plans, NDIS funding, and how you can self-refer. You don't actually need anybody to refer to speech pathology. You can just do it yourself. And then, at the end, we'll have a little bit of a chat with any questions that you might have. So speech pathologists, or speechies as we like to call ourselves, are here to support communication in all of its forms. So that's more than just talking. There are so many different ways that we communicate when we break it down, but it might mean helping a child say sounds more clearly, helping them to understand and use language, connect with other people, use a multitude of different forms of communication. So we call that augmentative and alternative communication, and that's using things like symbols or high-tech devices instead of our voice or as our voice. We also help kids to feel safe and confident at meal times as well. But really kind of at the heart of it, we help kids to be heard, we help them to be understood, and we help them to be confident in who they are and to communicate that to people. So our work is about helping children take part in everyday life. So that's things like chatting at home, playing with friends, asking for help at school, or enjoying meal times without feeling stressed or pressure. And we don't do it alone. So we work alongside families and their teachers and any other professional that's involved in their support, because when everybody's on the same page, our kids thrive. So it's really important that we collaborate and we all do it together, so that our children get the best outcomes for them. So what exactly do we support? Kind of knowing what a speech pathologist is, what do we support? So we support speech, so helping children say sounds clearly so that others can understand them. So whether they're just chatting with a friend or answering in class or telling a story. We help with language, so building the skills to understand and use words, sentences, and ideas to express themselves and make sense of the world that they're living in. We also support their social communication, so things like turn taking, understanding emotions, and forming friendships, and all the subtle little skills that help us connect with others. You know, that's our non-verbal skills. Oh, sorry, something's ringing. Or somebody's in the lobby.
That's all right. I'll let them in.
You've got that?
Yep.
Sorry, my computer's just beeping at me. So lots of subtle skills. So, you know, the little faces we pull to show that we don't understand, or really helping kids make sense of those social communication functions that we have. We also support fluency. So some children who stutter, we support them to speak more easily, more confidently, and to feel heard without pressure. And then feeding and meal times, so helping with picky eating. Often we work alongside with OTs to support sensory challenges in those meal times. And we also focus on safe chewing and safe swallowing during meal times. So it's all about building their confidence and reducing stress around food so that mealtime does not have to be a battle. That's actually a battle I don't get to do tonight, which is very nice. My children can have that battle with their dad. We also support their literacy skills, so helping kids to learn to read, spell, write, so that they can participate and thrive in school as well. So it works really, it's not about fixing sounds or language, it's really about empowering children to communicate in ways that are meaningful to them and to their family and their community in whatever way that looks. So I know that communication seems really simple, but it's so complex. And at the end of the day, it is a right, not a privilege. And it's foundational to our learning, to our relationships, and to our well-being. And that extends to our children as well. So you probably can tell I really love that that's what my job is, that I get to empower children to use communication in whatever way works well for them. So now we're going to jump into the early years. So the first 5 years, they're a really powerful window of language and communication. They're also very powerful little people. That's actually a picture of my daughter, who's 3.5, and she has some power behind her, let me tell you. But at this age, the brain is developing very rapidly, and little ones are learning through everyday moments. So it's nothing structured. We're not sitting down and saying, okay, let's learn our A, B's and C's today. We are learning through everyday interactions and little moments, and it's nothing, there's no big milestones that are really going to set off that learning. As a mum, I know that all of that learning happens in the in-between moments. So it's, you know, during nappy changes or snack time or getting your shoes on and reading the same book for like the 15th time in the day. So reading it again and again. But this is where our connection builds and our language grows and communication really starts to take shape. It's in those really mundane moments in our life, or just those everyday little things that we do in routines. So that's why early support is really crucial if it's needed, because it can make such a huge difference, especially when it's embedded in your family routines and led by play and connection. So in these early years, we're looking for some key milestones like babbling around 6 to 9 months, first words by about 12 to 15 months, and combining 2 or more words by about 2.5 years old. We're not really listening for just words though, we're also watching for our little people's gestures. So like their pointing, their shared attention, their pretend play. So all of these beautiful little signs, all these things that they do, it signals to us that communication is starting to develop. We need all of these skills before we can use verbal language. At this age though, play is the work of childhood. So and when I say it's the work of childhood, every morning when we get up, my children and I talk about our jobs. My job is to go and talk with little people. My son's job is to go to school and to learn lots. And my daughter's job is to go to kindy and to play and learn. That is their work. That is their job in childhood. So this is why we take a play-based, child-led approach at this age, because that is how children learn best. And one of the most powerful things we can do is support the grown-ups who are there for all of those everyday moments. So that's where programs like Hannon, It Takes Two to Talk really shine, because they empower you as the parent to build the language in your everyday routines and really take control of supporting your child's development. So it's not about adding more to your plate. When we talk about how we support that 0 to 5 years, we don't want to add more to your plate, because trust me, you can't take on anymore, but it's about noticing where the rich learning is happening in your day and supporting you to develop that even further. I love this quote. Karen Segnetti is the creator of Learn to Play, and it really reminds us that play, it's not just fun, it's how children make sense of their world, and relationships and play are at the heart of how our kids build their language and their social skills, and their confidence as well. So the primary school years, my eldest just started prep, and oh my goodness, is it a big transition or what? Not just for him, for me, to be perfectly honest, but you know, there's lunch boxes, there's uniforms, there's a whole new world of expectations of learning, friendships, independence, there's new people everywhere. So primary school years are a very critical age that we support, because communication becomes even more important. It's not just about being able to speak, it's about being understood, following instructions, making friends, and understanding where you stand in that social hierarchy, I suppose, that starts to form. They learn to read, they learn to write, they have to express bigger ideas. You know, we might understand big ideas, but we've not been asked to show how we understand that before. So as Speechies, we support all of this. We walk alongside children and families to make sure kids can feel confident and connected to their classroom, because we, at the end of the day, it's not just academically, we want them socially and emotionally attached to their classroom as well. Because if we don't have good school attachment, that foundation for learning really isn't going to be there. So as they're moving through these primary years, we often see needs show up in a few key areas. And these key areas are things like struggling with being understood. So that could be their speech clarity. This can impact their confidence in the classroom and also in the playground as well. Other kids might find it tricky to follow instructions or retell stories, or find the words to share their ideas. So, you know, if we think about something's happened in the playground, if we can't retell a story, how that translates is that we can't go to the teacher and say, this is what happened to me in the playground, I've hurt myself, I need this, this, and this to be okay. So if we can't retell those stories, that's a pretty significant challenge that our kids are going to face. We also support literacy too. So things like reading and spelling and writing. This is one of my passion areas as well, is that early literacy and learning to read and spell. But we particularly support kids who are showing those signs of dyslexia or any other specific learning differences. And then again, we look at social communication, because this becomes a much bigger focus as we're moving through primary school. So we really need to have that understanding of emotions and navigating group work, and all of it takes really strong communication skills. But through all of this, our goal, it still stays the same. It's to help kids feel confident, to help them feel understood, and to feel capable in the school environment, but also at home and with their peers too. And here we've got a little quote from Professor Pamela Snow, who's a leader in language and literacy research. And she reminds us that strong verbal language skills or oral language skills are essential for learning to read, write, and succeed at school. So when we're supporting language, we're really building that foundation that supports everything else that comes as we get older. Now into the teen years, I will say I don't see many teenagers. I much prefer to play with little people. The teenagers that I do see are children that I saw when they were 2, very long time ago, which makes me feel quite old. And they're seeing me for different things now as they've kind of popped up, and I'll share kind of how the teen years really changes from a language and communication perspective. But essentially, teenagers are navigating high school, which means increased independence, identity shifts, friendship changes, and communication is at the heart of all that, and it plays a huge role in how they connect and they learn and advocate for themselves, because that's now what they have to learn to do. So in our teen years, communication does look a bit different, but it is just as important. So they're navigating those friendships and the school pressures and identity, and, you know, also having to navigate tricky relationships or issues that come up at home as well, because, you know, teenagers are not always our beautiful little children that we had. You know, they've got a lot going on for them. But also in high school, we expect them to use advanced language skills. So that's things like writing essays or understanding abstract concepts, communicating confidently in new environments, like, you know, part-time work. So coming across people they've never met before and all of a sudden having responsibilities and new rules. But for some teens, they also need to figure out how to find their voice. So they need to figure out how to self-advocate or express their emotions or navigate really complex social situations. Often, one of the biggest areas that I support when I am working with teens is executive functioning. And this is usually a really crucial skill to support. So it's things like planning and organising, managing their time, sequencing all the different steps that they need to complete for a task or assignment, putting that in the correct order and being able to stand back and look at the big picture and see the logical order and structuring that. Yeah, it's a really tricky time, isn't it? Again, though, we come back to our role is to help them feel seen, help them feel heard, and help them to communicate what's going on for them. When we work with teens, we meet them where they're at. So I suppose it's a form of play-based intervention, if you want to talk. You know, we're still following their lead, we're meeting them where they're at. But I suppose the one key difference working with teens is that we do give them the choice. We do give them autonomy. You know, this is my job, this is what I can help you with. You can choose to take that and work with me, or if that's not where you're at the moment, you know, we can revisit this in a little bit. That's often the approach that I've taken, and it usually works really well. So this really speaks to how we approach therapy with teens. Before we can support communication, they need to trust us, and that comes from connection. So showing up, listening, meeting young people where they're at, and letting them know that we are invested. So now we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty things, and to be honest, I think I'm running pretty quickly, so I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast, but when should I seek help? So some of the most common things I hear is, this is just a phase, or should I be concerned? Or I've had some concerns, but so-and-so told me just to wait and see. Their child didn't talk until, you know, this age, so it's okay. Or, you know, I was worried, but then, you know, my mum said that actually he's a boy, so it'll be okay. But the truth of it all really is that you don't need to wait, and you don't need to wait for a crisis either. So if something's feeling off, it is always okay to ask. So I thought I'd go through some of the signs that I would look for that might suggest a child would benefit from seeing a speechy like me, particularly if your child isn't meeting key communication milestones. So, for example, they're not babbling around that 9 to 12 months age, they're not saying words by 15 to 18 months, and they're not putting 2 or more words together by the time they're 2.5. If your child is really difficult to understand, particularly by the age of 3, we would want to be kind of looking into why is this happening. So by the age of 3, most familiar people, so people in their inner circle, should understand them. And then by the age of 4, even unfamiliar people, so let's say, you know, the lady at the grocery shops, should be able to understand most of what they say. I can only think of the grocery shop example because my kids make best friends with everybody at the grocery shop. But if children are struggling to express themselves, so that's another key sign that we like to look for. So they might have a limited vocabulary, they might have short or jumbled sentences, or find it really difficult to explain what happened at kindy or school. Often what things that will come alongside that will be frustration or anger or emotional regulation challenges. If children are having difficulty understanding what's being said, so some examples would be not following instructions, keeping in mind we're talking about little people who don't like to follow instructions, but often as parents of our children, we can tell it's because they don't want to do it or it's because they don't understand it. Zoning out during questioning, so that's, you know, that blank stare and just kind of disengaging from the conversation. Seeming really confused when others are talking to them as well, or, you know, they might come up and start talking about something completely different to what the conversation was. Other things we look for is if children are falling behind with their reading and writing. This is our primary school kids, and that might look like things like difficulty learning their letters, difficulty learning sounds, difficulty sounding out words or spelling, or organising their thoughts in writing. Organising their thoughts in writing comes a little bit later, usually when, you know, we're writing connected sentences, or we're kind of starting to express our ideas in written form. And if communication causes frustration, if there's big feelings or shutdowns or avoidance to talk altogether, those are some really key signs that communication could be hard for your little person. And I would definitely encourage, you know, you to seek some support. If your little one finds social interactions challenging, so this might look like things like making friends is really difficult, taking turns in games is really challenging, or understanding social cues can all kind of be linked to those communication challenges. When we say difficulty making friends, though, we need to consider our little person's personality. So some children are off in the playground straight away. That's my 3-year-old, makes friends with any single person that's around, whereas my 5-year-old needs time to warm up. Can make friends when he wants to, when he's motivated, but is very comfortable staying with me. And that comes down to personality. It's not due to a lack of skills. So we also like to assess those situations and really look at those key aspects too. Is there a personality thing going on here, or is it due to a lack of skills? When we talk about seeking help, you do not have to tick off every box that I've just gone through. It's about kind of tuning into what you're noticing and trusting your instincts about your child, because you are the person that understands and knows your child best. If you're not sure, or you're just not confident in what's going on, I would really encourage you to reach out. We, being GPs, allied health professionals, are here to guide you and other parents. It's part of our job, and even if it's just for reassurance or next steps, I don't think you should ever feel like it's unnecessary, or you're being silly, or you're wasting time if you just need some reassurance or figuring out what's possibly going on. I don't know all the services that offer it. I know we offer it. We offer a 30-minute growth and guidance call where it is a paid service, but where you can get in contact with one of the speech pathologists at my practice, and we can sit down for 30 minutes together and really go through what it is that is not sitting comfortably with you, and we can come up with a plan's staged next steps, I suppose. I know there are other services that offer that too, but you can always talk to your GP as well. So I've quoted myself. I know who does she think she is, but I say this all the time. I say that multiple times a week. You know your children best. If something feels off and you're not sure, it is okay to reach out early. It is okay to talk to your kindy teacher or the centre director, or talk to your friend, or even just cold call a speech pathology practice or an OT. It is okay to reach out for help, and it's okay to do it early. You don't need to wait until things feel bad enough or somebody says to you, oh, okay, I think this is bad enough now, to ask for support. And now we've got, what does therapy actually look like? If you're standing kind of outside my therapy door, you probably just think we're playing, which is probably a fair observation. But therapy is always individualised and based on your child's strengths, their needs, their interests, their goals. It's always very purposeful and play-based. So we focus on play because it's engaging for your child. That's what they enjoy doing. It's fun, it's silly. It's always family-centred. So part of the session will be focused on your child, but that's purposeful in terms of modelling and showing what we want you to be doing with your child at home. And then the other part is coaching and partnering with you to make sure you understand what how we're going to get from point A to point B. It's very practical and very purposeful. So we use strategies that integrate into your everyday life. So it's not adding to your plate, it's complementing your routine, your family. Therapy is always progress focused. So there is always ongoing reflection. We're always adjusting approaches, and we're always problem solving to make sure that what we are doing is in the benefit and the best interest of your child and your family. So while you might see us playing with cars, or, cooking at the kitchen, or having a chat over, our little picnic, every moment is a chance to build connection with our children and also to build communication. So connection before correction always. So this is from the Circle of Security model, and it's a beautiful reminder that relationships come first, no matter what. So in therapy and at home, we focus on that connection first. And I'm not sure what other speeches are doing at the moment, but one of the first goals, particularly for my under fives, is bringing joy back into our interactions, because often we get so caught up in just the daily grind that we're not having fun with our children anymore. So we always focus on that connection first, and then we move into really specific language-based activities. If we're not having that connection, our children can't learn and grow and feel safe and feel understood. And how do we actually get started with speech therapy? It's pretty overwhelming, can be daunting, but the good news is you don't actually need a referral to see a private speech pathologist. You can reach out directly, you can have a chat over the phone, and you can see if it's the support that you need. There is so much involved with different ways to access funding, but some of the most common ones are your GP can refer you to a speech pathologist with a chronic disease management plan. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because I will definitely get information wrong, but essentially you may be eligible to access up to 5 subsidised sessions to see a speech pathologist or another allied health professional. There is usually a gap payment though. We've got self-referral options, so you can just call up. You don't need anybody's permission to get in contact with a speech pathologist. There may be some free support available through a local community health or service or hospital, but the waiting lists do vary, and often it's children with significant needs that are triaged first. But you can still go on that waiting list. We've got kindy and school support. So often kindies, you know, they're there with your children every day as well. So they'll raise concerns with you, and they may make a referral or a recommendation to just seek some extra advice from a speech pathologist. There are lots of clinics and the uni as well that run screening programs in kindies as well. Depending on the service you access, they may fund it or you could fund it. It really depends, but there are options like that available too. And then there's NDIS funding as well, which is a whole nother world. But if your child has a developmental delay or a diagnosed disability, you do have or will likely have access to NDIS funding to support your child. Yeah, so those are the few ways that you can access speech. I think the biggest takeaway is just reach out directly. You don't have to wait for permission. You just need to do what feels right for you. So I've actually run really quick today. Went really fast. I think I thought I would talk a bit slower, but I know it can feel really overwhelming at times, especially because when we don't know what's typical and what's not typical, or when we should step in, that can be really challenging. But you don't have to wait for a crisis or to feel like you're at, your tipping point. Early support really does have a lifelong impact. So reaching out as soon as you don't feel confident I just can't recommend it enough. Parents are their child's most important communication partner. And with the right support, you have got everything you need to help your children thrive. And I think it's really important to know that every child has a voice and that every family deserves to have or receive support if they need it. So I think as speechies, we're just so grateful to be part of that journey usually. I've quoted myself again. I know, I still can't believe I thought that was okay, but it's really at the heart of everything that I do though. So every child communicates in their own way, and they all deserve to feel heard, valued and understood. And if you reflect on, if I'm not being heard, if I don't feel heard, if I don't feel valued or understood, how does that make me feel? Our children feel that too. They just don't understand what they're feeling. And for families, you deserve to feel supported on that journey. So if you've got any concerns and somebody says, wait and see, you pick up the phone and call me, because I'll tell you, you don't have to wait and see, you listen to your gut. So with that, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a privilege to be able to support families and to be able to support Little Wonders with this amazing initiative that they're running. I'm just so glad that people came today. So I think we'll open up to questions. I'm not sure what you wanted to do, Karthik, but I've also just got a little feedback form there. So if there's anything that you really like to have a presentation on, please submit your feedback, because I might just change the rules on the guys at Little Wonders and change my next presentation if that's what other people want to do.
Cool. Great presentation, Erin. It's a great introduction for speech pathology as such. I've just got a quick question. You were talking about swallowing and eating and things like that. Is there any specific signs to know those things at the early ages? Because when especially between 0 and 5, when kids are starting to have solids and getting to a habit of eating certain types of foods and things like that, there can be a lot of trouble. But I don't think anybody would have thought about coming to a speech pathologist for that.
Yeah, I've got to say it's not something I thought was in our scope when I started my degree, to be perfectly honest. I've been very fortunate to have worked in clinics that have offered feeding and swallowing services as well. But so let's break it down, because there's kind of two components when we think about feeding and little people. So we've got swallow safety, so ensuring that our children are safe when they're eating. And then we've also got, I suppose, picky eating or fussy eaters that we can go into. So that's more variety of foods and willingness to try foods. So let's just jump to the swallowing first. So some key signs that something might not be going on. If children are taking a really long time to eat their food, or food is still sitting in their cheeks at the end of meal times, that usually indicates that there is something going on with their oral skills, and that first process of eating, it's delayed and taking a really long time. So I'd want to know what's going on there. In terms of swallowing, if children are coughing or choking regularly, it's not just once in a blue moon or once every now and then, because kids do, they do gag, they do cough, they do choke. Speaking from a lot of experience, actually, my daughter's giving me a really hard time with that. But if it is happening consistently on foods, then I would want, that would be a really big red flag for me. I'd also want to know, is it happening on specific things all the time? So is it just on thin fluids? So is it anytime they're having a drink, they're coughing or choking, or is it when they're actually eating food? Recurrent chest infections, particularly as little tiny bubbies, if they're getting chest infections all the time, that would be a red flag, and I'd want to look further at that swallow. Is it going down the right way, or is it going and sitting in our lungs? Those are probably my biggest key red flags for swallowing. When it comes to different textures and fussy eating, red flags can start from quite early on. So, kids not wanting to touch food. And I know that there's an OT on the line here, so please tell me if I'm wrong, Kate. But, if like that messy play and avoidance of touching foods and textures, lots of gagging when they're trying foods, and then also restricted diets. So as we get older, we do have peaks. We'll start eating everything, and then all of a sudden, I'm not going to eat all these things again. There are developmental norms for that, but if we're restricted down to less than 10 foods, then that is a concern in terms of meeting their nutritional and growth requirements. Sorry, I'm really good at forgetting questions. Did I cover all of that?
Yeah, that was spot on, I guess. And just I just want to add on to that question, if that's okay. You did mention about textures of food and things like that, but occasionally we find kids putting dirt in their mouth or sand, and they chew on it. Is there anything that we need to kind of would you say is that a red flag if they do that, or it's pretty normal to do that?
So if they're eating, I feel like I might be going out of my scope here, but if they're eating non-food items,
Correct.
Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it would be age dependent for one. There is to a degree where I think exploration of those textures can be normal. Yeah, this is kind of outside of a speech pathology scope, I've got to say.
Okay.
Non-food items and sensory stuff. But I think if it's persisting beyond a certain age, then from a safety perspective, you want to make sure that nothing's going on there. Like, are they deficient in something? Or I think the general concern would be if they're putting all sorts of things in their mouths, we need to make sure that they're not going to be unsafe with that from a choking perspective or a poisons perspective. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. For all of you on the webinar, the mic is open, so if you need to ask any questions, you can ask now.
Or you can pop it in the chat. Oh, here we go. Kate just said, sensory processing largely impacts feeding, and this includes both children that either avoid sensory input, so fussy eating or restrictive feeding, or sensory seeking, eating non-food items and oral input. We will cover this in more detail next session. I can't wait, Kate.
Beautiful. Thanks, Kate.
If you don't want to ask a question over the mic, you can type in the chat, or my email is always open as well. So if you don't feel comfortable putting any questions out at the moment, you can always just shoot me an email or give me a call and we can have a bit of a chat too.
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
I have a quick question. Sometimes children come from bilanguage backgrounds, so they
Yeah.
speak more than a language. How
hmm
do we, because if they come to a center and then they speak in one language and they go back home, they have another language. We're not so sure. They do figure out how to speak in one language. I mean, they understand our language and English and can able to talk, but sometimes they seems to be very confused or takes them too long to speak in one language. How do you encourage like bilanguage? How do we support them in from childcare perspective?
Yeah, that's a very big question. And look, I think, do I have a topic of covering bilingualism? I'll write that
I,
down. We do that. I'll make one. That's a really good question because it can be really confusing for kids. The evidence says that we should speak to children in the language that we are most proficient using. In childcare settings, that's different because we might speak multiple languages as the carer, and the children come from monolingual backgrounds or bilingual backgrounds, or multiple languages. So where that comes into play, what we say is we choose one language for one environment. So at home we speak, let's say at home we speak, just thinking of an example. Okay, I've got a little one. At home we speak Hindi. At I think it's cousin's house we speak Punjabi, but at school we speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how we separate the languages, and that's how we get exposure to those three languages. What I would encourage you to do is just to get down on the child's level and take it really slow with them and give them time to process what has been said. And if they're really struggling to tell you what is going on, we can always use a simple phrase of, can you show me? And when they show you, we can then model for them really age appropriate language. Oh, you want water. Let's get your water. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it has.
Sort of. It's a
Yeah.
really big topic to cover.
That's right.
In a single question, but I think taking it slow and making sure you're using the one language in the centre. Children are so clever, they will catch up. They will. And we're expecting them not to know everything, especially our bilingual children. They will be a little bit slower to start with.
Yeah. Thank you.
there was another question from Renee, Erin, on the chat.
So 2-year-old saying a lot of words but no sentences. Should I seek a speechy? So that's a really good question. So like I always say, I need more information. If our 2-year-old is starting to put those two words together, so we've got lots of words, if they're starting to put two together, then that's okay. So between the age of 2 and 3, we only expect children to be combining two words. That could be simple things like, we could say like mummy's glass, that's just my cup. We might go and pick up, I've only got toys on my desk, might go and pick up, your child might go pick up your shoes and go, oh, mummy's shoes, or oh, daddy's shoes. So we're only expecting two words at this age. It's by 3 years that we're wanting to see simple sentences forming. So if we've got lots of words, so say between 50 and, let's say 50 and 80 words, if we've got somewhere in that realm for their vocab, and we've just turned 2, then I would say that's okay. On the basis, I'm just making some assumptions here. As I mentioned before, if you're feeling concerned though, it's absolutely worth reaching out just to have a discussion. But I don't know if that's answered your question, sorry. 2 in December, what are we now, March? Still have some time. So what's December? By about June, July, if we're not putting those two words together, then I would definitely have a chat to a speech pathologist about how you're going. But we're still only recently 2. Can say colours. We got any other words? Yeah. Okay. So we've got a nice little range of words there. I would just keep monitoring, and in your interactions with your little person, really simplify your language. So make sure you're getting down with them, and you're using 2-word combinations to show your little person how to put those words together. So that could be when you're reading books. You might see, a dog running. Dog running, or you might see, the monkey climbing the tree. The monkey's climbing. So really simplifying your language to model what we would like your little one to be doing. That would be my recommendation. And then if things aren't really happening or changing by that mid-year point when we're at 2.5, then absolutely reach out.
Okay. Any other questions, you can definitely reach out to Erin through her email, and we'll be running more sessions as well, so you can definitely ask more questions there as well if you want to ask more. And everyone's mic's open. If you one last chance, I guess. If you want to ask a question, you can ask now, or you can type it in. Probably give another 2 minutes, and then we can wrap our session for today.
Yeah, sorry I went so fast. I did have a big
That's
sticker
right
on my computer saying talk slower, but I'm in this job for a reason, and it's because I like to talk, and I like to talk fast.
All right. Sounds like no more questions. So we may wrap it up, and we'll see you in the next webinar.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Oh, there's somebody chatting. There's a little type happening there. Oh, thank you. Anyway, my email's always open. My phone, I'm very bad at answering my phone, so email me would be the recommendation.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks, Erin, and thanks everybody for joining.
Bye.
See ya.